15 years ago, Andrew and Paula Keens' love story began at the annual Harvest Festival when Andrew, a shy graduate student, volunteered to run a physics demonstration booth. Paula was drawn to Andrew's quiet intensity and brilliant mind, while Andrew was in awe of Paula's confidence and zest for life. They married 2 years later in a simple ceremony by Pinewood Lake, their vows echoing off the surrounding mountains as friends and family cheered. The early years of their marriage were filled with the joy of building a life together. They bought a charming home on Maple Street, its wraparound porch soon cluttered with Paula's collection of potted herbs and Andrew's telescope. Weekends were spent hiking the nearby trails or hosting game nights with their growing circle of friends. To the outside world, the Keens appeared to be the perfect couple, supportive, affectionate, and deeply in sync. However, small fissures began to appear in their relationship as Paula's career in marketing took off, bringing with it late nights at the office and frequent business trips. Content with his position as a high school teacher, Andrew struggled to understand his wife's drive for professional success. Their conversations became stilted and superficial. Paula found herself frustrated by Andrew's reluctance to try new experiences or socialize outside their established routines. In turn, Andrew felt increasingly inadequate in the face of Paula's vibrant social life and career achievements. Attempts to rekindle their connection often fell flat, and their physical intimacy waned. In this fragile state, Paula first crossed paths with David Reeves, setting in motion a chain of events that would shatter the delicate equilibrium of their marriage. The seeds of Paula and David's affair were planted on a rainy Tuesday afternoon at the Pinewood Business Association. Paula, while representing her marketing firm, found herself drawn to the charismatic newcomer who spoke passionately about revitalizing the town's visual branding. Over the following weeks, their paths continued to cross professionally, with Paula's firm hiring David for a series of projects necessitating frequent meetings and collaboration. The pivotal moment came on a quiet Sunday afternoon when Paula had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and as Andrew reached past it to grab a mug, a notification flashed across the screen. The seed of suspicion, once planted, grew rapidly, and Andrew opened the message thread. Andrew's obsession with Paula and David escalated to a breaking point, leading him down a path of paranoia and ultimately violence. Convinced that Paula was meeting David, Andrew spent hours stalking David online through fake social media accounts, analyzing every interaction for signs of contact with Paula. In October, Andrew, convinced that Paula was meeting David after work, followed her to a small art gallery downtown. He saw Paula laughing and chatting with colleagues, but no sign of David. This realization led him to make a decision: if reality wouldn't conform to his suspicions, he would force it to do so. He chose an abandoned lumber mill on the outskirts of town, offering both privacy and multiple access points. Andrew decided against firearms or any weapon he would need to purchase, opting instead for a garrote, a silent and effective weapon easily made from household materials. To avoid suspicion, he gathered the necessary supplies, including wire, gloves, bleach, and other cleaning supplies. To lure David, Andrew crafted a fake email account under the guise of a local arts organization and invited him to participate in a secretive art installation project at the mill. As he waited for David to take the bait, Andrew meticulously cleaned his car, removing any traces of hair or fibers that could later implicate him. He purchased a burner phone to communicate with David under the guise of the arts organization coordinator. On the night before the planned meeting, Andrew cleared a path through the debris and positioned the garrote wire behind a stack of rotting pallets, ready to be grabbed at a moment's notice. The next morning, Andrew went through his routine, kissed Paula goodbye, and taught his classes on autopilot, fixated on the events to come. As the final bell rang, Andrew hurried to his car and drove to the lumber mill, taking a circuitous route to avoid being seen. Inside the dilapidated structure, he positioned himself behind the stack of pallets, the garrote wire coiled in his gloved hands. At precisely 4:30 p.m., David arrived at the mill, and Andrew emerged from his hiding spot, looping the wire around his throat and pulling tight. David thrashed violently, his elbow catching Andrew in the ribs with surprising force. With one final convulsive shudder, David went limp in Andrew's arms. Andrew held on for several minutes more, ensuring that no life remained in David's body. Panting heavily, Andrew stared down at the lifeless form before him, realizing the reality of what he had done. He began cleaning up the scene, collecting stray fibers from David's clothing and meticulously cleaning any surfaces they might have touched. As the light outside began to fade, Andrew dragged David's body to a pre-dug hole in the far corner of the mill, covering the shallow grave with debris, knowing that the impending demolition would further conceal his crime. Driving home, Andrew found Paula already preparing dinner and forced himself to act normally. Over the next few days, Andrew was hyper-aware of every news report and passing police car, but found nothing about David's disappearance. Paula, oblivious to the turmoil beneath her husband's calm exterior, commented on how much more relaxed Andrew seemed lately, attributed it to their efforts at reconciliation. A week after David Reeves' murder, signs of concern about his whereabouts began to surface. Andrew Keene, a graphic designer, prepared a detailed account of his movements on the day of David's disappearance, complete with fabricated receipts and a meticulously edited digital trail. As the investigation gained momentum, Andrew found himself drawn into the search efforts, volunteered to help distribute flyers, and even organized a search party to comb areas of Pinewood Park. His apparent dedication to finding David threw off any suspicion that might have fallen on him. As days turned into weeks with no sign of David Reeves, the Pinewood Police Department intensified its investigation. Detective Laura Stewart, a recent transfer from Portland with a reputation for solving cold cases, was assigned to lead the inquiry. Stewart's first step was to retrace David's last known movements. Interviews with his clients and friends painted a picture of a man excited about an upcoming art project, though details were frustratingly vague. Stewart's interest was piqued by mentions of a secretive installation at an undisclosed location. The detective's scrutiny soon turned to David's personal life. It didn't take long for rumors of his affair with Paula Keens to surface. Stewart approached the subject delicately in her interview with Paula, who admitted to the past indiscretion but insisted it had ended months ago. Andrew, present for the interview, played the part of the supportive husband perfectly, expressing sympathy for David's disappearance despite their history. As Stewart dug deeper, inconsistencies began to emerge. David's bank records showed no unusual activity, and his passport remained in his apartment. His car was found parked at his residence, ruling out the possibility that he had simply left town. The turning point in the investigation came on a frigid December morning, 3 months after David Reeves' disappearance. A team of surveyors assessing the old lumber mill for demolition made a grisly discovery partially unearthed by recent heavy rains. David's decomposing body was found in a shallow grave. Detective Stewart and her team descended on the scene, combing the area for evidence. Despite Andrew's careful cleanup, trace evidence remained. During her second conversation with Andrew Keene, things began to unravel. Stewart noticed subtle inconsistencies in Andrew's story, minor details that didn't quite align with his previous statements. His demeanor, once calmly cooperative, now had an undercurrent of nervousness. When Stewart casually mentioned that they had surveillance footage from near the lumber mill, she saw a flicker of panic cross Andrew's face before he quickly composed himself. Under relentless pressure, Andrew broke down and confessed to the murder. He recounted the entire sordid tale: his discovery of the affair, his months of secret planning, and the final fatal confrontation at the lumber mill. Paula, brought in for questioning separately, was shattered by the revelation. The town of Pinewood reeled in shock as news of Andrew's confession spread. Andrew was charged with first-degree murder, and psychologists debated whether his actions were the result of temporary insanity or a more deep-seated pathology. So, what do you think of our video? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.